Today we will be looking at bankruptcy filing trends by chapter in the state of Illinois. To do this, we have about a dozen charts showing bankruptcy activity in the state going back to 1990. All this filing data comes from the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. Now, this first chart shows total filings in the state since 1990. During that time, there have been more than 1.6 million cases filed, which is third highest in the country. Going back to the early 1990s, the filings were running around 40,000 per year in the first half of the decade, and then up around 60,000 per year by the end of the 1990s. Early 2000 filings were up in the 80,000 per year range. Big jump in 2005, the year of bankruptcy reform. Huge drop off in 2006, which happened pretty much everywhere. And then we had four big increases going up to 2010, where filings got back up to about where they had been prior to bankruptcy reform. And then since then, filings are down about 30% through 2015. And basically in 2016, filings will be about the same as they were, say, about 1996 or so. This chart shows filings relative to population, and the red are the very highs, the yellow is very low, and most of the states in the Northeast have very low bankruptcy rates. The Southeast portion of the country has very high bankruptcy rates, and Illinois is well above average, 19% above average overall between 1990 and 2015. That's 11th highest in the country. Looking at it by year, Illinois is the blue line here. They follow the national average pretty closely from 90 to about 1998. Then we're higher up through bankruptcy reform. And then since about 1999 through 2015, filings in Illinois have been about 25% above average. And you can also see that the gap is getting larger, the gap between the national average and Illinois. And so, for example, in 2015, Illinois had the fourth highest bankruptcy filing rate relative to population. There's also real differences within the state. You say in 2015, when Illinois was about 70% above average, Cook County, the bankruptcy rate was 148% above average, where the rest of the state was more comparable to national filings. This next chart shows Chapter 7 filings by year. It's the same general pattern as total filings. We're running at about 30,000 per year in the early 1990s, up to 40 to 50,000 per year from in the late 1990s, around 60,000 a year in the years prior to bankruptcy reform. A big jump in 2005, dropped by nearly 80% in 2006. And 4 years of increase through the recession, where filings got back about to where they were prior to bankruptcy reform, and were about double where they had been, say, in 1990. And then a fairly big drop-off by about 45% since then. So right now filings are about where they were, Chapter 7 filings in the state are about where they were in 1995. This chart shows Chapter 11 filings in Illinois. And I see a big drop-off through the 1990s, and this happened pretty much in every state. Since then, filings have generally run around 300 a year, a little bit higher during the recessions, and in 2001, 2002, and the Great Recession, 2008 to 2010. The 2015 figures are a little bit skewed because the Caesars case came in and had about 175 related filings. So the actual bankruptcy rate would have been about right here. And it looks like the state is only on pace for maybe 150 or so Chapter 11s this year. So the rate is generally falling. Looking at Chapter 13 filings per year, and this interesting pattern, and unlike really any other state. In the early 90s, around 10,000 per year. 8 years of increases where they more than doubled. Then a big drop off through 2005, 2006 around bankruptcy reform. And then they have headed back up. A number of states peaked around 2010, but Illinois is the only state to keep going up since then. And it's the only state that had peak chapter, the highest ever in 2015. And also, this seems to be kind of a local phenomenon. More than 70% of these are in Cook County, which includes Chicago. Looking at the percent of cases that were filed as Chapter 13, the national average has been right around 30% most of the years. That's the red line here. There was some disruption before and after bankruptcy reform, but 30% has been about the norm. Illinois was in the low 20s throughout the 1990s. It's kind of followed the national pattern, but has spiked up, and so has now gone up to nearly 40% of cases in the state are filed as Chapter 13. Now, this chart shows the unemployment rate by quarter in Illinois. And the blue line you can see is above the red just about every quarter going back to 2007. Generally 1 to 2% above the national average. So right now Illinois is sitting at a little over 6% compared to about 5% nationwide. Looking at the filing trends, filings peaked nationwide most recently in September 2010 and have been down over the last 6 years. Nationwide, the decline is 49%. The biggest declines, the red states here, over 60%, and actually California and Nevada have had drops of 70% now. The smallest declines have generally been in the southeast, and these are states that most of the caseload is Chapter 13 cases. Illinois has also had a quite low decline of only 32% compared to, down by about a third compared to about a half nationwide. Now looking at that quarter by quarter, you can see that the blue line for Illinois, most quarters is closer to the zero line than the national average. So the national has generally been running in the 10 to 15% range up until 2015, whereas most quarters the decline in Illinois was under 10%. Now, so far in 2016, the first 6 months of the year, filings were down about 5% in Illinois, about 6% in nationwide. So the rate of decline is slowing down. The third quarter, both national and Illinois were down another 6% or so. So I think the outlook for filings is about 54,000 cases filed in the state this year, probably slight increases in the coming years, but I don't see any return to the 80,000 or so per year caseload that the state saw, say, in 2002 to 2005. Well, this concludes our look at bankruptcy filings in Illinois. For more statistical information and other information on bankruptcy, be sure to visit the newsroom section of the ABI website at www.abi.org.